This sermon is brought to you by Shofar Christian Church. We hope that you will be blessed by this message. Our audio and video sermons are also available on Shofar TV to download and share.
I think I've been praying about when I should share my testimony about the stuff that we've been through as a family for the last couple of months. And yesterday, after Encounter 4, Henny and I were both throughout the week just trusting the Lord to show us who would bring a message today and what it would be all about. And coming back from Encounter 4, I just felt God say, I think maybe it's time. So I shared it with Henny. I will be sharing on how God was my light and my salvation. And I'm going to try and not cry the whole time. And I would like to share with you Psalm 27 that really carried me through a lot of the stuff. So you're welcome to open up your Bibles to Psalm 22. We won't go anywhere else. We'll stick to it. So at the end of March, we went away for the school holidays. We were at, what's the place called? Beléne Spa. So they've got swimming pools and trampolines for the kids and all of that stuff. And it was really a lovely time getting away. But I had a stomach bug going into this 4 or 5 days. I can't remember how long we were there. And my stomach was really just weird. It felt a bit weird. But I thought it was the stomach bug because the kids eventually also had it. And yes, I don't know why we get sick on holidays, but that happened. So on the day that we are supposed to return to Cape Town, this stomach thing just intensified, and I ended up being in so much pain in the car on our way back. Now we've packed up the tent, we've put everything in, and we're now on our way home. And as we're just driving through the gates of Beléne Spa, I just feel like I'm doubling over in the car, and it feels like I can't contain this. This is out of control. Now, I have had 4 babies, right? All of them ended up being emergency cesareans, but I was in active labor with all of them before they were actually being taken out. I know pain. I've been there a couple of times, and this felt more or less on the same level as being in childbirth. So I was just hanging onto a pillow on my lap, and I told Henny, you and the kids now need to start interceding for me because I'm not going to make this trip. I can't. It feels like something is on the inside of my stomach and just squishing it the whole time. So we were on our way to Cape Town, and I told Henny, I think it was about 10 minutes into the trip, I told him, I think we need to turn around and find a doctor. And we turned around, and we were in this very small little town. I can't remember the name, but I know Rawsonville. Yes, there where Kenny comes from. And it's like, really, that's the only connection in my mind. Oh, this is where Kenny grew up. I can't remember the name, but I remember the connection. But then we can't find a doctor, because now it's long weekend or something, I can't remember. But they had a doctor there. But he wasn't there that day, and there's only like one doctor in this little town. And then there's these ladies working at reception, and they said, I'm so sorry, we can't help you. I said, do you at least have a pharmacy? No, we're kind of it. I'm in big trouble. But by now, the pain is so intense that I need to start vomiting. So I just asked them, can I at least just use your bathroom? So I quickly ran to the loo, praying all the time in there, just interceding, like, Lord, deliver me from this pain. But it's not going anywhere, it's just there. I get out and I probably look like white as a sheet. And these ladies said, oh, we're going to give you something. What's your symptoms? And they gave me some pain tablets, but I mean, it's Beléne. They can't give me anything stronger. And I think they gave me something for stomach pain. I downed the tablets, and now getting into the car, getting ready to go back, but I am in excruciating pain. The kids are all quiet, they are not speaking, they can see something is really, really wrong. And I'm just saying, just pray for Mommy. Just pray. Just keep on praying. It's our only hope right now, to pray. So we get to Cape Town, and somewhere along the line, I felt a relief. And my stomach was still sore, and it was still feeling weird, but at least that intense pain, it stopped. And we went on with life kind of normally. But for the next week or two, I struggled to eat properly. I could feel like something in my system is not okay, and I thought maybe it's just something of the stomach bug that I had. But not going to a doctor or anything, you know. I don't know, it's my Afrikaans roots. Like, you go to the doctor when you feel like you're already kind of dead. You don't go before that. I don't know if that's it. You know? So I didn't go to the doctors, and by the first or second week in April, I was constantly woken up during the night with pain. And this one night, it got so intense, like that other day in the car. I woke up I think it was at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I just asked him, I need you to intercede now. This is a rough one, and it's not lifting. Because it happened a couple of times throughout that week that I would just start praying the moment I felt the pain, and then it would lift after about half an hour or so. So in my mind, this was a spiritual attack, and I addressed it in that manner. I was going into warfare instead of going to a doctor. So I woke up and I said, you need to pray. And it was about 3 hours of just interceding and praying whatever comes into my head and asking the Lord to reveal stuff in my life that is attracting this pain or whatever, just praying whatever comes into my mind. And then after the 3 hours, I just felt the Lord say, now you are done. Now you can stop. Just surrender. And I turned to Henny and I said, I think we need to go to hospital. I think now I'm done praying. So we went to ER at Coetzer because it's literally like 5 minutes from our house. I mean, how amazing is God's providence in that. And got to ER, and then you have to go through the process, right? They do quickly a triage on you, take your blood pressure, which in my case was completely through the floor. It was extremely low. And they took a urine sample and all of that stuff. Blood, all of that stuff. Now I'm waiting to see a doctor. I think it took about 30 minutes to 45 minutes before I could see one of the students. Fourth year, I think, because I think that's where the guy was at. And by that time, I was lying on the floor in the fetus position. I just completely had no control over my body. I was just so aware of being in pain. So they obviously said, ma'am, are you okay with the morphine shot? I'm like, yes, please. Bring the morphine. You can put it next to me. So I got a morphine shot, and it took the morphine about a little more than an hour to actually have an effect. I think everything in my body was just completely contracted into like a spasm, I don't know. But anyways, so there was relief. All of the tests came back. They showed something with my liver wasn't okay, but it wasn't too hectic, so they were not worried. And I managed to fall through the cracks. Now, apparently that's a thing that does happen. I mean, it is a hospital, and there's a lot of people switching shifts, and in the switching shifts, I got sent home with antacids and Panado. We phoned Barbara, who is in our community, and just said, this is what happened. These are the tablets that I got. What do you think? She said, no, I'll phone my friend working at Coetzer and I'll ask, what did they see on the labs? So she said she's concerned with the labs and I should go back. And I said, I can't go back. Because what am I going to say? Hey, listen, you didn't do your job. How do you go back? And then I said, okay, if the pain returns, I will go back. So lo and behold, that afternoon by 11:12, I was in pain again. I could feel it start building. It's like a wave building bigger and bigger with every passing minute. And we went back. And then there was one of the students, and he's like, "Are you back again?" I'm like, "Yes, you sent me home with this." And then he's like, "Okay," going through the whole process again, sitting in their seats, waiting for a doctor. Eventually, I got a bed there in ER, basically, not yet in a ward, but then they had a look again at the test, and they said, and Barbara, and this is how amazing the Lord is. This is how God fights for us, right? Because I'm too nice to demand a certain level of care, because I didn't know that I could demand a certain level of care, right? And I'm going there and I'm saying, "Lord, I don't know how the hospital works or which doctors you would like me to see, but I trust you. And I am going to surrender into your hands. So you figure this out for me, because I don't know what to do." And Barbara phoned a friend of hers who works in ER, and she said, "Take care of this lady, and she's coming in, and you guys, you need to do scans. You need to do at least an ultrasound." And that is how God used someone in the community to fight for me. So when I got there, every doctor I ended up seeing said, "Hey, Barbara phoned me about it." And I always feel like saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But thank you, Lord, because Barbara phoned you. And I went for an ultrasound, and the ultrasound revealed a 10 centimeter cyst on the common bile duct that goes from my liver to my pancreas. So it's kind of big, right? They could immediately tell me that it is benign because of the imaging, but it was there and it probably was inflamed, and that is why I'm having these symptoms. So when they said that, I knew an operation would follow. My head was already there. I knew this would be happening. So they got me a bed and they said, "Well, this one young student doctor, he stood next to my bed somewhere during the night, and he said, 'Oh, you're the lady with the strange cyst.'" And I was just, "Oh, I've got a reputation as the lady with the strange cyst." So I ended up going from the ultrasound, going to do a CT scan, because they needed some better imaging of where this thing is and exactly what it touched, wherever it is attached. And after the CT scan, they still felt that they did not have clear imaging to plan my surgery. So I had to wait until they could give me a date to go for an MRI. So I get sent home with this big bottle of really, really strong pain tablets. And I think there was like 100 in the bottle. I'm like, "Oh, this is a bit rough." But anyway, so I go home, and then my journey of lying in bed for about a month started. Now, if you know me, you know that I am not good with sitting still, ever. I'm always busy. It's like my ears don't open up until my hands are moving. It's weird. I don't function well sitting still. So for the first 2 weeks, I would drink these tablets morning and night as the doctor prescribed. He said, "For as long as you've got pain, this is how you manage it." And by the 3rd week, I felt the Holy Spirit say, "I think you should leave the morning tablet." And I did. By the 4th week, I felt the Holy Spirit say, "I think you should leave the evening tablet as well." And then I had a conversation with Coetzer, and I said to her, "It's very interesting. I'm not in that amount of pain as I was at the start of it, just feeling uncomfortable, but the pain is actually okay, and I'm not on the tablets anymore." And she said, "Well, how did you go off them?" I said, "Well, I did it for 2 weeks, and after that I just felt the Holy Spirit say, leave it for this week, leave the first one, and then for this 4th week, leave the second one." And she's like, well, that's interesting, because these tablets, you can get addicted to them after using it for more than 2 weeks. I'm like, wow, that's amazing how God's timing works. And she said, and do you know that if I was your doctor, I would have told you to leave it exactly in that way. To leave just the first one, and then leave the second one at a second week. And I'm like, how amazing is God? He is so in the detail of it. And I just thought I had this feeling about leaving these tablets. So, 2 more weeks, and I had my MRI date. I could go. They did the imaging, and it was a little bit more than 2 weeks after that. They just phoned me the Friday morning. They said, listen, can you come in today or tomorrow? Well, no, I can come in tomorrow. This is a bit quick. And they said, okay, great, because Monday we'll do your surgery. So we had very little time to organize ourselves, getting ready for this. But I had this growing concern. I think it was for about the last 3 weeks, just before my surgery. I felt the Lord warn me and say, the enemy would like to take your life. You need to be ready. And I thought it was just me being dramatic, right? Because I do have a bit of a flair for the dramatic. So I'm like, oh wow, Lord, I'm going to be one of those people going to have this heaven experience. Or I'm going to at least be in some or other spiritual battle. That's what I'm like preparing myself for. So I wanted to give it a lot of attention, but also not because I know I can be a bit dramatic. So I spoke to Henny, I think it was the Friday, just before I got admitted. And I said, listen, I've been walking with this thing for a couple of weeks, and I think it's just me being dramatic, but maybe I should just test it with you. I feel like the Lord is saying that I should be aware the enemy would like to take my life on the table. And he said, well, that is interesting, because I had the same feeling. So I phoned up my friend in Secunda, who's usually my go-to when I need to pray through some stuff. She's an absolute intercessor. And I said, listen, I had this weird, strange feeling popping up, and I think it's just me being weird, but I have this feeling that the Lord is warning me about the enemy wanting to take my life. And she said, well, I've kind of felt that from the start. Okay, Lord. By the witness of 2 or 3, I think it's confirmed. And I took some time to make sure that my affairs are we created a notes thing that is web-based, wherein I put in my banking details and my passwords, because maybe not coming back, and any would get access to all of my stuff. And not just that, I had to take account of my heart and unforgiveness that I still had towards certain people. And if maybe God wasn't Lord of my life in every aspect of my life, I needed to sort that out, because my judgment day would probably not be far from now. So we went into the surgery knowing that this could change everything for all of us. And the Lord took me to Psalm 27, and I just listened to this over and over and over again. The last 2 days before I went into surgery, and I just meditated on this. And the most amazing thing happened in my heart. There's a lot of stuff about the apostles being martyred for their faith. And Paul says things like, my life is Christ and my death is gain. But this never, ever made sense to me as much as it did just before I went into surgery. While they were getting the theatre ready, surgery for me was on the 27th of May, and I was the first one on the list. I had a team of 4 surgeons, 2 of them profis. So I was guessing, I'm guessing this is really a strange cyst. They call in the big guns. My surgery lasted for 5.5 hours. And I'm lying there and I know the gravity of what I'm entering into. But I felt so free. I felt so safe. I felt so secure and protected in my loving Father's arms. I had this really old hymn popping up in my head, and I'm like, can't I just remember like a more current song? Because I can't remember all the words to the hymn, but this hymn is just going in my mind, playing on loop. And I felt for the first time in my life that my life is Christ. And my death is gain. And if I don't open up my eyes at the end of this surgery, everything will be okay. God will take care of my family. And I will be with Him. How amazing with Him, right? So I went into surgery. My heart was peaceful. Getting out of surgery, a big thing, the battle almost started for me. So after surgery, they take you into this recovery room, high intensive care recovery room, and you're supposed to be there for a couple of hours and then you get moved out into the wards. I ended up spending 2 days in the recovery ward, if you want to call it that, because everything in my body was struggling. My blood pressure was extremely low because I lost quite a bit of blood during the surgery. My heart rate was extremely high and I couldn't get it back down to a decent resting heart rate. My kidneys nearly shut down. I think there was about 100 mils of fluid for a little bit more than 24 hours. So they started putting me onto some fluids and stuff like that. But my lungs struggled to recover. They struggled to saturate. So I didn't get a lot of oxygen, and I ended up being on oxygen for about 3 days. But everything in my body was telling me that the fight is still on. And I was in and out of being awake, being completely there, being on morphine for a couple of days. But I felt at peace. And I felt my spirit within me was strong. I felt like my body was weak and small and open to attack, but my spirit felt like a giant. It was the weirdest feeling ever. I just felt like this is going to be okay. Whatever happens, it's going to be okay. So they moved me to the ward after the 2 days, and my recovery really got some speed. I could walk around, I could go to the toilet, and the physio came for my lungs, and she said I need to walk up and down in the ward for a couple of times. I think she said twice a day. I did it religiously twice a day. The second day I did it 3 times, and after that the nurses knew I was walking up and down in the aisles, just trying to get my lungs to recover. And I was actually sent home 2 days earlier than planned. So I really felt God was just amazing in this. Came home, was surprised to find that I couldn't sleep normally on a bed. With my lungs still trying to breathe, I couldn't expand. Well, even just talking made me feel out of breath, and I had to stop talking and just take in some air and then talk again. I couldn't lie flat on my back. It felt like something was just closing up my throat. And putting pillows underneath my back hurt my back muscles because of all of the trauma going on in the front. My back muscles tried to compensate, so they went into almost like a spasm. So my kids were rubbing me with DP shampoo. Andy, she did that at least 3 times a day. And I smelled like my grandmother. So we realized after the first night, ending up in tears because I so wanted to sleep, desperately wanted to sleep, but I just couldn't. My body was so uncomfortable. We went to get a hospital bed. So Henny found someone on Facebook, I think. And we rented the hospital bed for about a month. And that brought so much relief. I could actually sleep. And how amazing is God's providence in this as well. I shared a room with Armand. Because the hospital bed is really big and it wouldn't fit into our room. And it was also very heavy, and Henny decided, I'm going to just put it in the first room. We ended up putting it into Armand's room, and I got to spend the next month with Armand, and it felt like such a special blessing from the Lord. Having 4 children, we tend to group parent them. Like, if there's a lesson to be learned, you say, hey, get all of your siblings, there's something we need to discuss. But we tend to not always get to the individual like we want to. And I had some special time with Armand, which really was amazing. So 3 weeks after the operation, my recovery is going well. It's very slow and frustrating because I don't like to be still, but it's going well. My body is recovering. Then I got sick. All of a sudden, I was just throwing up. I had an extremely high fever. I got into a bath with really hot water and still ended up with shivers. And Henny got worried. So I was like, no, I'll drink a Disprin and go to bed. Can I not learn, right? That's what we're all thinking. Anyway, so he's again phoning Barbara. Barbara, I'm worried. This is what I'm seeing in Beléne. And Barbara ends up coming to our house with her, what's a koorspeen? Thermometer. And she's taking my temperature because our kids are grown now. I mean, the way that I know they need something for fever is I just do this. Right? And then I'm like, oh yeah, you're hot, you need to drink something. So we didn't have a thermometer in the house anymore that was in a working condition. So she brought a thermometer, she had a look at me and she said, listen, I can see that you are reluctant to go to hospital, but I feel that you should. And there I had to decide to trust a doctor more than I trust myself again. And we went to hospital. And again, Barbara phoned her friends. When I got there, there's this beautiful Jewish girl with long brown hair. She says, are you Mrs. Coetzer? I said, yes. She said, Barbara phoned me. She got me on a bed really quick, so the whole process was accelerated a bit. And Barbara, from what they spoke on the phone, I still don't know what they said to one another, Barbara explained to her something that made her feel she needed to send my urine for cultures. Not just doing the strip test to see if there's anything going on, but to send my stuff for cultures. And that was divine timing. Because later we would find out, after I've been there for 2 days on a drip with antibiotics, they would find out that I had this very resistant strain of E. coli that I picked up during surgery. And it started off with an infection in my bladder, it went on through to my kidneys, and it ended up in my bloodstream. So my body, apparently, by the time I got to hospital, was extremely close to going into septic shock. And recovery from that would have been a miracle. And that is how God took care of everything. Even sending us a doctor to phone a friend and say, you need to get her in real quick. So the tests came back, the cultures came back, and I had to be on antibiotic, a specific antibiotic for this strain of E. coli. And lo and behold, there's only 2 IV antibiotics that work for this bug. And they already had me on one of them from the first day. So they just changed it up to the stronger one. And I was there in total for 5 days, and I could go home again. And that is how God saved me, over and over again. And I kind of feel like, what is it, the orange sour worm in the packet. I feel like God's favorite. Because before I even knew I had a need, He provided. He provided a Barbara. He provided doctors who really stood still and took a second look. So I'm going to share with you Psalm 27. And the title is, The Lord is my light and my salvation. It reads like this: The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh, my adversaries and my foes, it is they who stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though the war arise against me, yet I will be confident. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in the shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will lift me high upon a rock. And now my head shall be lifted above my enemies all around me. And I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. You have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. Hide not your face from me. Turn not from your servant away in anger. You, O you who have been my help, cast me not off, forsake me not. O God of my salvation, for my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in. Teach me your ways, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. So, this psalm has three parts. First, it's actually like opposites the whole time. We have lament and laud, right? Lamenting about my situation, but praising God. It's about persecution, but praising God in this persecution. And it's about warfare, and it's about worship. And it's broken up into three parts. And the first part is verse 1 to 6, where the guy who writes this psalm, and we see it's of David, so it might have been written either for David or by David, but let's say it's David. So he talks about the privileges that he has because God is his God. So then he goes on, and in verse 7 to verse 12, he talks about this problem that he has, the lamenting part. And in the last two verses, he talks to an audience, encouraging them to persevere. And I so enjoy the thought pattern that David had. He's like, I'm in a heap of trouble, and I really need God, but I'm going to start off with proclaiming again who God is, whom he's always been for me. In season and out of season, God has been there, and he's been taking care of me. And he starts off with that, reminding his emotions and reminding his thought patterns, remember, this is the truth. And then he goes into, this is my emotional experience of where I am right now. And then he ends off encouraging others to remember who God is. So we're just going to go just quickly through it. And I want to share to you the stuff that really stood out for me personally. In verse 1 it says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Light isn't needed if it's not dark, right? And light illuminates the way forward. When it's dark and when things are tangled all up in a ball and I don't know where to turn to or whom to turn to, God is my light. And God is my salvation. You see, the interesting thing, because we've got the old and the new, we hear the word salvation, our minds immediately go to Jesus dying on a cross, paying for my sins. But when David writes, he is my salvation, he's saying, he is the hand that delivers me out of the hand of my enemy. He physically saves me from whatever it is that is creating this darkness around me. The Lord is my stronghold. And a stronghold is something that is powerfully built to create a safe space. And it's like we run into the stronghold in the times when it is dark outside and we don't know where to turn to. We run to Him because He's the safe space. And then evildoers assail me to eat up my flesh. And what He's saying is that they are so vicious, those who are set against me. He's comparing them to wild animals. So it's not just a little bit of an evil guy just saying here and there something horrible about you. This thing wants to destroy you. It wants to annihilate you. And then my heart will not fear though war arise against me, yet I will be confident. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And I so related with David here. He's like, Lord, if I can have one thing, if I'm permitted one beautiful wish to be granted in this life, He's saying, I want to dwell in the house of the Lord. And I so felt like that going into this. I'm like, I don't care, Lord, what life looks like after this, or even if there is life. As long as I've got you, it's going to be okay, because that's my one desire. And there's something about Him being our one desire of our hearts that just puts everything else into perspective. I can see my enemies for who they are and what they are, but I can see who my refuge and my salvation is. Where is He in our lives? Is He my one desire? Because if He is, I will be able to face anything. Verse 5, for He will hide me in His shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of His tent. The cover of His tent. He's speaking about a tent, guys. This is not a fortified battle building, right? This is a tent that is vulnerable to attack. But David is like, this is the safest place to be. Because of what? Not of the structure around me, but because He is with me in this tent. It's His dwelling place. This is where I'm safe. I'm safe with Him. And then it says, He will lift me high upon a rock. That rock speaks about having a greater vantage point, being elevated above my enemies so that I can see them coming a mile off. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Head being lifted up, it's speaking about having confidence. Not walking like this, but lifting up my head knowing God elevates me above my enemies. He's showing them to me. And He's showing me that I am with Him in His tent and I'm okay. And I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. And the Hebrew word to say shouts of joy, interestingly enough, is the same word that they used when they went around Jericho and they shouted for joy and the walls crumbled in. This is like a war cry. But it's not a war cry of, hey, I'm coming for you. It's a war cry of saying, hey, my God is going to deliver me. It's my trust is not in myself, it's in Him. And I know what He can do for me. And then verse 7, hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud, be gracious to me and answer me. You have said, seek my face. My heart says to you, your face, Lord, do I seek. Hide not your face from me. Turn not your servant away in anger. To seek someone's face is to get up and personal. It's about intimacy. It's not about, Jesus, just come and sort out these enemies that have camped around me. Come here. I want to see you. I want to see you face to face. This is what I want. I don't worry about the enemies. You are going to take care of that. I need you. Here in this tent where you abide, I want to see you face to face with nothing standing between us. Then verse 10, for my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in. David is saying, even though those who were genetically programmed to love me and protect me, even if they desert me, even if they abandon me, you will never abandon me. Even those who wouldn't ever abandon me, even if they abandon me, you wouldn't. He says, verse 12, give me not up to the will of my adversaries, for false witness have risen against me, and they breathe out violence. And here we have this picture of they want to attack me, they want to kill me, but they don't even have a real reason to do it. And they don't always need a real reason to do it, right? And he's saying, Lord, I didn't do anything to deserve this, but it's okay, because I'm safe in your shelter. And then verse 13 and 14, he says, I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Now the Jewish thought was that God is a righteous God, and that the scales of justice would always balance out. If it didn't balance out on this side of eternity, that it would balance out on the other side of eternity. And what David is saying, Lord, I trust you not to just eventually balance out the scales of justice. I trust you to do it now. I trust you to deliver me from the hand of my enemy now. 14, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. So there was this picture that Bianca actually shared with me before I went into surgery. And she said she's reminded of a documentary that she watched on this crazy, dangerous beach in Spain where they surfed. But a lot of people actually lost their lives because there was these monster waves that would just crush you. And the problem with these waves were that when you went under the wave, when it completely wiped you off your board, there would be so many bubbles because of the force of these waves. You would think you're swimming to the surface, whereas you might be swimming downwards, not going up, because of all of the light bubbles that is around you. And where they would encourage people, when you get wiped out by one of these waves, you need to go limp. And you need to let the bubbles take you up to the surface, because you won't know where the surface is. And that was just such a powerful image. And while I was in hospital the second time, a friend of mine from Secunda just messaged me. She said, I don't know what this means, but I just had this picture of you just going limp in the waves, just bobbing around. And I'm like, you've got no idea how significant that is, and how the Lord had to remind me that the word for this season is to wait for the Lord to deliver me from the hand of my enemy. And what that looked like for me was to wait and to trust Him to bring me to the surface. And there was just such a freedom in that, knowing that He will look upon me favorably on this side of eternity as well. He would take care of me on this side, not just eventually, this side of eternity. And that all He asked of me was to go limp and just trust in Him and rely on Him.
Thank you for listening. Remember that our sermon audio and videos are also available on Shofar TV. Go to www.shofaronline.tv to download and share.